It's an emergency silly season episode. I wouldn't even call it an emergency. It's great to have news in the middle of the break, except it doesn't allow us to take much of a break, does it, Tim?
No.
So obviously we had Lawrence Barretto on Friday last week. This is going to be like this isn't a full race. This is a sprint, but we're going to talk quickly about some of the news that specifically came from Red Bull and Audi, and a couple of other things as well today. And then next week, Ben Hunt, who is the author of Growing Wings, Inside the Story of Red Bull Racing, is going to talk to us about not just Red Bull now, but how we got to right now. Helmut Marko versus Christian Horner versus Toto Wolff, Max Verstappen, Sebastian Vettel versus, oh my goodness, Mark Webber. There's so much to go over. But Tim, let's start with the big news yesterday. And I think if you're not a hardcore Formula One fan, it's really hard to context this because most people are like, yeah, I know the drivers. And you could be forgiven. Okay, you know Christian, you know Toto, you probably know Gunther Steiner. But like Jonathan Wheatley within Red Bull is who, and why is it a big deal that he's leaving?
I think like just Jonathan Wheatley in a whole has been in Formula One since like very early 90s, Adam. I mean, starting off at Benetton, I think he was chief mechanic there for quite a while and moved up the ranks. And then obviously Christian Horner sort of plucking him out of there and joining the Red Bull Racing team, being as successful as he has been as a sporting director. Adam, I'm quite surprised it's taken this long for him to secure a team principal role somewhere. To be pretty honest, I think it shows just how hard, Red Bull Racing has tried to hold on to him for as long as they have. Because you have to remember, he's been there since early 2000s, right?
Yep.
And been involved in, he's been involved in winning like all of their 6 constructors, 7 drivers, world championships. Like he's a huge factor at that team. And just the relationship, I think, between Audi, new COO, Mattia Binotto, and Jonathan Wheatley and their history and how long they've known each other for. And I think Binotto just knew that this was the right fit for him, the right fit for Audi. I think it was the working relationship in which that he needed. And, it was surprising about how fast it all came together. I mean, I don't even think Audi, Adam, was prepared with they weren't even prepared with a statement when, Red Bull put out that tweet on, we're going back to last week, last Wednesday. And, that was actually quite surprising. I remember, waking up and seeing that, and I was like, wait a second, what? I didn't get it. I didn't know this was going down. Like it was caught everybody by surprise. And so I think for Audi, they've got a really good, solid team principal there. But this really stings, I think, if you're Red Bull Racing, because you're losing a very big asset.
Well, let's talk about I want to talk about both teams in this, but I want to start with Red Bull because people are saying that losing Adrian Newey is secondary to losing Jonathan Wheatley, which really says something. What is it about Jonathan that I know he's been there forever? I think it was 18 years. What are they losing when they lose this guy internally?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this is a guy who's, if he's not at the track side working with the team, then he's back at the factory, and that's the way he is operating the team from back there, and then traveling to the next race and getting the team ready track side, helping with logistics. Also, having to like go against the FIA when he needs to, having to make sure that he has history prepared to go against the FIA in a ruling of some kind during a race. He puts pressure on the stewards. He really works a lot of that team, and we don't really see it. But I think one instance for me really stands out was in Bahrain during the whole Christian Horner investigation. You had Jonathan Wheatley, who had the entire team come to him at the hospitality area and just basically telling them, like, we need to stay focused. This is what we're doing. This is how we're going to do it. And this is how we're going to get stuff done. And obviously they went out and won the race, right? But if it's not for Jonathan Wheatley sort of pulling the entire team together, then who's to say, like, they don't fall apart 2 races down the road, right? So it's just that he is such a massive voice within Red Bull Racing that I don't think you can't replace that, and I don't believe that they have a replacement for that.
Wow. And do you think this was a surprise, or do you think they saw it coming?
I think it's been a bit of a surprise, by the looks of it. I mean, with Red Bull issuing that statement first and Audi not even having anything ready to go to put out to the press to let us know what's going on, I think it's really caught them off by guard. And I think it was kind of one of those things like, oh, well, okay, well, we now kind of know this and we better get ahead of it. And it's kind of just like, well, why would you get ahead of it that way and not just work with the other team on coordinating things? Because usually the F1 teams are pretty good at coordinating with each other when it comes to people switching teams.
Right. It seems like Red Bull's a little upset about it. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah, it kind of feels that way, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if that is a fact, but it feels like it for sure. I mean, the way everything was sort of a knee-jerk reaction, it does feel like that.
Andrea Seidel and Oliver Hoffman obviously leaving the Sauber Audi project a week and a half ago. Do you think that their inability to get Carlos Sainz in there contributed to their ultimate demise and then opening up this position?
I think it's part of it. Not the entire pie, obviously, but it's definitely a piece of it. I would say there's other things going on in there where there were between Hoffman and Seidel. I think there was a bit of a power struggle for sure. I think there's also were a lot of conversations on whether or not, Seidel could handle the job at the top, considering that he was coming from a team principal role and then being upgraded to like essentially running like an entire operation of a new works team coming in. There were questions surrounding that for sure as well. But I mean, I think Carlos, by signing with Williams, basically told us everything we needed to know about that Audi operation at the moment. Not saying that this is what it's going to be like for the foreseeable future, but at the moment, this is where they are. Right. And it's, from his eyes, it kind of seems like it's just not good enough. I mean, I was on a media call with James Vowles on Tuesday last week, and we were basically talking to him about signing Carlos, and James had been after Carlos since 2023 Abu Dhabi.
Wow. Because
he knew that Sainz's contract was up for renewal. So he wanted to make sure that he was at least doing his due diligence and trying to get the one driver he really wanted. Like, he really wanted Carlos Sainz on his team. And it was basically James just having to wait it out to see what Audi was going to look like, what it was going to do. So for Carlos to make his decision. And I think for Carlos going in, having a look around, seeing what was going on with the team behind the scenes, discussing things with his management, and then going back and forth with James, and James showing them, well, like, this is what we're doing, and this is how we're doing it, and having that plan and structure put in place where they were at least going to be competitive. Because I don't think that Audi's just going to come in and immediately be competitive, right, Adam? Like, it's going to take quite a few years for them to. I mean, this is Formula One, yeah. Like, this is Formula One, right?
Was there when they were bad, right?
Yes. But like the thing is like, this is F1, Adam. Like, it's not easy to just enter a team and be good right away. That doesn't happen. It takes like years to be really good. And for Audi, you have to make sure you're playing the long game. So if Carlos is still being quite competitive in 2-3 seasons, then you go back and you try and bring him over, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is a Grand Prix winner, right, Adam? Like, you gotta those are things you have to take into consideration as well. He's a really great driver. So,
and Wheatley would have limited, but some experience with Carlos, obviously with the young driver program, and his involvement in Toro Rosso. So they'd know. I mean, everybody knows each other, but there would have been somewhat of a working relationship there. Now, Tim, for Sauber Audi, and I call it Sauber Audi until it's Audi for sure.
Yep.
How much of a windfall is this in terms of talent? Because everybody said when they got Hoffman and Seidel, wow, holy smokes, great pickups. And then they drop them, and they have Binotto, Wheatley. I mean, it seems like they're able to attract talent. Obviously, they've probably got some great compensation packages. That always helps. What do you think? What do you think this is for them?
I think it sounds like, I mean, with the management structure that they've kind of put in place now, it seems a little easier to navigate. Mm-hmm. Where you've basically got the president of Audi. And then you've got Mattia Binotto, who's overseeing the entire thing. And then you've got Jonathan Wheatley, who's definitely under Mattia Binotto, overseeing the entire team from like trackside, all that kind of stuff, right? So you've already changed a big part of that structure and how it all works and simplified it. And I think that was for the best. And I also think that that's you've basically got really two key individuals who have, lived, eat, breathe Formula One, right? Like Binotto is no joke. That guy's been in F1. I mean, probably like when I was like 5 years old, right? I mean, he's been working with Ferrari for so long and have been with Ferrari for so many championships. And maybe, being a team principal wasn't for him. But who's to say that, as a COO, like this is a totally different ballgame. This is just different for him. It's a different position. It's different little things he's going to have to do. It may not be as stressful as a team principal. That's going to go to Jonathan Wheatley. He's the one who's going to have to make those decisions with drivers. Who's number one? Who's number two? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think as a management chain and the talent that Audi is now plugged in, I like it. I think it's a very smart trajectory that they're on.
Now, one of the things that's emerged with this, with Mattia and with Jonathan is, obviously not driver lineups just now, but driver lineups for the future. And I'm going to throw you a bit of a curveball here. But a name that has shocked people in connection is Gabriel Bortoleto, who is a Formula 2 driver, McLaren junior program. Apparently, Binotto's a huge fan. Wants to bring him over in either a reserve driver role or a junior driver role for the future already. So it speaks to, I mean, we don't have to speak about Gabriel specifically, but if you have any insight on that, we can. It speaks to how far in the future they are planning, because this guy might not be ready for 2 or 3 more years. And if I'm him, I'm looking at McLaren's driver lineup as a McLaren junior driver and going, well, I won't be getting into Formula One for a while.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I think for Gabriel, it would be a smart move to come over and basically do like a year off or 2 years off and being a reserve driver and being really implemented within an F1 team, something similar to what Oscar Piastri had done. I'm not comparing the two of them, obviously, because Piastri is like just incredible,
next level.
Yeah. But that being said, I mean, it's a good move for him if it's something that he was really seriously considering, and to have someone like Mattia Binotto, really, praise you and think that you're that good. I mean, that's awesome. I mean, that's incredible if you're a driver, no question about it. It'll be interesting to see, Adam, who they can fill in that seat with, because I think they're going to be needing experience. Mm-hmm. I think they know that. I wouldn't be surprised if Valtteri Bottas is back there. I really wouldn't. I think that would be probably your best bet as to who you should have as a driver in that seat. Been with the team already for a few seasons,
and performed well.
Yeah, and performed well, qualified well. Adam, I don't think it doesn't make sense, right, to really just move on from him because of the experience that he has with the team, and you're going to need that, I think, for the next few seasons. Mm-hmm. And I don't think you should be. You already have a new driver coming in who's going to have to learn the ropes, learn everything from ground zero, learn everybody who does what where in Nico Hulkenberg. I don't think you want to do that again, right? You don't want to have two drivers that are kind of just trying to find their way at the team.
Yeah, and that's a good veteran lineup that'll get you good qualifying, right? That's the key with
that's the key.
Teams that aren't great. Qualify well. Just start with that.
Yeah,
so
100%, man. 100%.
Yeah, so fascinating. It's a fascinating time in Formula One. I think we've had more stories per month than we had all last season. It's kind of crazy.
I thought I was gonna have last week at least the middle of last week sort of off. I thought it was gonna be quite quiet, and then it just went ape. It just went crazy, man.
And I got to ask you about Alpine. Bruno Famin has obviously said he's stepping back. I think that was only ever supposed to be a temporary posting when he took over for Otmar Safnauer. Yep. And now we have Oliver Oakes, who is coming from Formula 2, and is I think that was a Flavio Briatore hire. I think that's one of the first big steps the team's taken with Flavio. Yeah. What do you know about Oliver Oakes, and what kind of is that? How has it been received within the industry? Are people questioning it? I didn't know the guy.
I mean that's it's a great question because I don't know him either. I've never met Oliver before. I have never been over to the high tech paddock area before because obviously with Oliver being the team director there, he was in charge of not only the Formula 2 team but also the Formula 3 team as well. And it's just a different it's a different kettle of fish going from junior formulas up to Formula 1 and running an entire team, especially a team like Alpine that's so in flux at the moment with what are we doing in Viry, what are we doing with our headquarters in the UK, and then Bruno Famin behind the scenes now, who's going to have to transition, if this is what they're going to do, from their engine department over to their chassis department and having to make sure that they're not laying everybody off. They're keeping as many people as they can and transferring them and finding positions for them. So, I mean, it's a tough job that Oliver Oakes has been dumped into. To be perfectly honest with you, this is a tough position to put a new team principal in. This is something that I think you would probably want someone who's experienced, qualified, who can handle this sort of thing. And I'm not saying that Oliver Oakes can't handle it. Basically just saying that he is new and this could be a lot for him. But I mean, let's see how he handles it. I mean, if you're getting the backing of Flavio Briatore, I mean, it's pretty good backing to have, Adam. It is Flavio. He knows everything that's going on in F1 inside and out. And I mean, he's really made some changes at that team in a short amount of time, hasn't he? Yeah.
Well, I want to ask you about this because it has to do with Alpine, and it seems like it cannot be real. But I have to ask the question anyway, Tim. Matt J. Thompson, who is a F1 journalist, was one of the first to report that Alpine, obviously BWT is the big sponsor, but they may leave in 2025 to be potentially replaced by OnlyFans. Now, I think it's a joke, but he's the guy reporting it. He said that the OnlyFans investment in the French team would be significant. How likely do you think something like that is?
I have no idea. I don't even know what the rules would be on that in terms of the sponsorship and everything. I couldn't tell you, man. That's a new one to me.
OnlyFans is already in motorsport, by the way, in other series. And OnlyFans, by the way, for anybody that doesn't know, it's obviously a subscription service that started in some X-rated pictures and stuff. You can subscribe to people and see them in bathing suits or whatever. But they're trying to expand what they do. They have OnlyFans TV. They actually want to be a content creator subscription service that is associated with more than just following a model. So they are committed to that part of it. I don't think it would be like, hey, sign up and this is not supposed to be some crass thing. I think OnlyFans is trying to grow what they do. And so they do make a lot of money. They do have the money. They're already in motorsport. It's just, I think a lot of people are like, hey, you're keeping Andretti out because you want the sport to be okay, but OnlyFans is okay. I think there's a lot of bit of a false equivalency there, but I saw a lot of that out there. Like, we don't want to let Andretti in because that would be, there's tradition here and whatever. And then you're going to be like, well, but OnlyFans, it's cool. Do you think that a team like Alpine, which has already sort of seen as a team in chaos, they bring in a sponsor like that? Does it feel a little like Haas with Uralkali, like a little desperate, or is it just, hey, this is who has money?
I don't know. I honestly don't have that answer. I mean, I think if you're dismantling your engine project, and the money that's coming from that should be well and truly enough to sort of keep you afloat for a long period of time. Also factor in the investment that they've gotten from the likes of, Ryan Reynolds, Patrick Mahomes group that came in and invested a lot into the team, which was a quarter of $1 billion. I think I wouldn't know where they were hurting for money. You know what I mean? Like, plus you've got Renault as your backer, and plus you're also leveraging the Alpine name and brand. So I'm sure they're probably pulling money from there as well. The BWT thing was interesting because that was from like Otmar Safnauer. Like Safnauer was the one who brought that one on board because BWT and himself had a relationship, and they came with Otmar sort of thing from Racing Point. So. I guess also Aston Martin because they were on the car there for a year. But yeah, no, Adam, I don't know. Like I think Alpine should be okay in terms of money in that respect. But yeah, I mean, who knows? Who knows when it comes to F1 teams and their money? Like we never get to see like where where everything gets spent, who's getting what, how much are they spending for a season? Are they at the budget? Like, are they at the cap? Are they hitting the ceiling? Are they well underneath it? And so all of those questions, I think, would be great if we had the answers to.
2 years ago today, Tim, the most famous tweet, I think, in Formula One history was sent out. And it goes like this.
Alonso?
No, not
Piastri.
Alonso. Piastri. He said, I understand that without my agreement, Alpine F1 have put out a press release late this afternoon that I am driving for them next year. This is wrong, and I have not signed a contract with Alpine for 2023. I will not be driving for Alpine next year. We know that a lot of people lost their jobs over this, including the head of legal for Alpine. It seems like that Alpine was doing pretty well at that point, right? You had some good drivers. Obviously, Fernando was leaving at that point, but you had Fernando and Esteban, both who are now gone. Piastri's gone. And that team at that point, I think, was running fifth, fourth. Like, they were doing pretty good.
Yeah, they were.
And since then, it's been a disaster. It was Piastri a symptom of things to come, or did Piastri start the ball rolling along with Fernando Alonso to where we are today?
Well, I think, Adam, the big thing about the Piastri thing was that they had waited too long to agree to put him into the car for the next season. And then McLaren was quick to jump, like Zach Brown was quick to jump at the gun to make sure that, he was going to get this driver into his car.
Yep.
And I think Mark Webber obviously helped facilitate like a lot of that behind the scenes and how quickly Mark got that ball rolling for everybody, especially Oscar. And then I think when, they knew that Fernando wasn't coming back because they weren't going to offer Fernando anything over a year. Mm-hmm. And then I knew a few days before it kind of already went down that Aston Martin was like, and Lawrence was really putting a push on to get Fernando to the team because he knew that, like, hey, this guy is one of the greatest F1 drivers ever, and he's not slowing down, and he'd be a great fit for the team. And, sure enough, right, was a great fit for the team. Like, he still is. And so that sort of set that whole ball in motion. And I think for Otmar, it really caught him out. I don't think he was prepared as he probably should have been when it came to the driver market and the how much it was fluctuating and how quickly it was moving.
Mm-hmm.
And even maybe not even the own situation with his reserve driver at the time, and Oscar Piastri, and what his deal was and when it was what it was due to be renewed and all of those things as well. So it was just so many different things sort of happening at once. But I mean, it's interesting to see like how much these drivers like a Fernando Alonso and Oscar Piastri have gone on and done great things and really helped other teams.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about Alpine could have had. I mean, arguably, those three drivers are now the lead drivers at their teams.
Yeah, I also should say, Adam, that like I think Laurent Rossi at the time, he also had a lot of input in all of this, and I'm not too sure. I don't think it was necessarily all on Otmar, because I don't know if Rossi wanted to give Fernando like a longer term deal, like what he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you know, there was also that behind the scenes as well, and maybe like this is where that middle management executive type kind of comes in and gets involved in the racing program when they probably shouldn't be, and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Where we've talked about this before on the pod. I think it's, you know, something along those lines with that entire team back then.
Right.
I think it's changed a little bit now with what they've got.
Okay. It's, you know,
it takes a while for these things to turn around, right, Adam? Like it's not easy.
It goes to show what a huge loss that was on both accounts. To lose Alonso and Piastri in 2 weeks is pretty crazy.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about Andrea Stella? I'm sure you should be happy about that, Adam.
I do, because they've got so that's actually the next thing I've queued up. It's perfect. You know, obviously I've got the press release here. It's a privilege to be a part of McLaren Formula One team, and I'm honored to continue my role as team principal. I'm excited for what we can achieve together. What do you think about the extension with Andrea Stella? Because it seems like he's ushered in and very quickly ushered in a very successful car in a very successful potential era, right? Not just now, but maybe next year and hopefully in 2026 when the regulations change. Yeah. You know, obviously shoring up, and Zach Brown, I think, had a lot more to do with this, shoring up the Mercedes partnership. What do you think about Andrea Stella as a team principal, Tim? How much of what's been happening here is him?
Yeah, it's great. He's great. I mean, he's been at the team since 2015. Mm-hmm.
Seen some bad years.
Yeah, he's been through it, right? I think getting that appointment to team principal in 2022, I remember being on the press call for that, doing that over Zoom and talking to him a bit, because it was kind of like an unexpected replacement to Andre Seidel, but it was the right replacement. And I think the way that Stella has, you know, restructured everything, was able to bring in Rob Marshall from Red Bull, like that was huge for the team. And everything that he has done at the facility to get it working more as a group, so they encourage they encourage creativity when it comes to the designing, implementation of upgrades, and then all of them sort of signing off in their own particular department as to who does what, and then bringing it to Stella, and then all of them agreeing as a whole, like what's the right way forward. It's been a very team first atmosphere aspect that he's created there. And we noticed it, I think, big time in Hungary, obviously, with Lando Norris and the situation that happened there, not giving the lead back to Oscar. It speaks to what he's building there and what they already have built. And I've talked to many people within McLaren on both on IndyCar side and on Formula One side, and the team aspect of just how important that is. Obviously, starting with Zach and then bleeding its way through everyone else, which is smart, because I think where McLaren was, and then you compare that to where they are now, it's a massive jump. It's a huge jump, right? And I think for Stella, it's a multi-year agreement. Doesn't say exactly, what the end date is for him. But I think, just being 42 points behind Red Bull in this Constructors' Championship chase, 10 races remaining, like it's incredible what they've done, Adam. It's incredible.
It is. Yeah. And I don't know if we've talked about too much Red Bull's decision to stay with Sergio Perez. Surprise to everybody. I just want to talk about it. I want to touch on it quickly with you and me here. We did talk about it with Lawrence, but I do want to kind of hit. There were reports that emerged that the FIA stepped in and said, please do not let Sergio Perez go ahead of the Mexican Grand Prix. I have a hard time believing Red Bull would consider that because, I don't know what the prize money is for. I think the buyout of Sergio's contract is supposedly something like $5 million, although nobody really knows. The prize money for losing the Constructors' Championship, meaning coming second place versus first, I think there's a $15 or $20 million gulf there. It's pretty big. So money-wise, that might not make sense for Red Bull to lose the Constructors. Do you really think that the FIA stepped in and said, you can't do this to us, Sergio's huge in Mexico, and this would be really bad?
No, not the FIA. I don't think F1 would get involved either, because you're getting yourself involved in another team's business, right?
Sure.
And that doesn't make sense, and I don't think that would not fly. That would not fly at all with Red Bull. Compare this to hockey, Adam. Like, where would you ever see Gary Bettman or the NHL really getting involved with another?
Gary is really involved. That's the problem. So Gary's thing is oftentimes teams call Gary and go, who should we hire as general manager? And that's part of the issue that the NHL has, is they continue to hire the same. There's 35 people and there's 32 jobs, 35 coaches that cycle in and out, 35 general managers that cycle in and out, then there's 32 jobs, and there's never any fresh blood or any fresh ideas or that sort of thing. And I know that underneath previous ownership, Formula One acted a little bit like that, right? With, his name escapes me, but previous owner before Liberty.
Bernie Ecclestone?
Bernie Ecclestone was involved in the machinations. FIA now being a little bit, and Formula One now being a bit more of a corporate entity,
but the teams are their own. The teams are their own things, right, Adam?
They are.
Kind of then I'll use the NFL as an example, or the NBA as an example. Adam Silver's not going to go down to the Toronto Raptors and tell them to hold on to Scotty Barnes when they're just looking at, hey, we're going to trade Scotty Barnes and we're going to get first round in this, right? They're not getting involved at all in any of the team's player situation. And in this, I really do not see F1 getting involved in driver situations either. I think at the end of the day, a big part of all this comes down to just doing the math. How much were they going to struggle with bringing another driver in, whether it be Daniel Ricciardo, Liam Lawson, and figuring out, okay, well, how are we going to get these drivers up to speed in the quickest amount of time? It's probably going to take 2, 3, 4 races, right, to really get them comfortable and to understand the car. And we're going to bleed points to McLaren, Ferrari, Mercedes, who's coming as well. Why not just ride it out with the one guy we've already got and just try and give him and instill as much confidence in him as we can? I think for Sergio, it also comes down to what can they do to help him? That could come down to team changes behind the scenes. It could be removing his race engineer, right? And maybe trying somebody different. Not saying that Hugh Bird's done anything wrong or anything like that, and that he's bad, that he's not good at his job. But maybe he just needs a different voice in his ear for a race weekend. Maybe that's all it is, right? So I think you're trying to just find his confidence again and bring it back so you can just secure this Constructors' Championship. When in fact, if you bring somebody new in, you're blowing it all up. It's retooling the entire thing. You're taking more time to get people up to speed. That's what I think it is. That's what I think. Basically, they basically came to the consensus to keep him.
It does seem like there might be a seat available this winter, though. So that is going to be fascinating to watch.
Yeah, I think so, Adam. I agree with that for sure. I think like a lot of us were caught off guard that he wasn't going to be replaced. Last week, like it doesn't. I honestly, I thought he was going to be gone for sure, just because I didn't think they believed they could bring him back to the driver that they know he can be, because he is a very talented driver. He's in Formula One for a reason, because he is good. So I think in that respect, it could be that he's not there for next season, but let's wait and see what happens. I'd be interested. My thing is now that we know that Daniel Ricciardo's there for the rest of the season down at RB, and if Daniel can just stay consistent with these performances that he's had over the past few races, because he's been really good. If you go back to Canada and you go from Canada to now, you can see just how good he's been. But if he's able to kind of keep that string of consistent performances going, I'd be interested to see what they do with him.
Me too, because it seems like it's either that Red Bull seat or he might be out. And
that's what I was.
Liam Lawson's got to get in.
I was just going to say Liam Lawson's probably got to get in there, and it maybe Liam Lawson gets in at that RB seat for next year, and then maybe Daniel knows that he's got to perform from here on out to have a chance at maybe having a shot at getting that Red Bull Racing seat.
Yeah,
who knows?
Yeah. Well, Tim, it's supposed to be a sprint show, but we've already gone 36 minutes here. So listen, we'll wrap it up here, but it just goes to show how much is happening in Formula One right now. It's crazy.
I'm so glad I didn't take any time off or take a vacation.
You could be coming to us from Cabo right now.
I was thinking about Lawrence when we had him on, right? And because he was like, "Yeah, we just need a break." He's like, "Come on, F1, we just need a break." And then I was thinking, I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I wonder how Lawrence plans, his time off, right? Because he's
winter. Yeah,
that's what I was thinking, right? Every time it's got to be winter or something like that, because once you get into the summer break as we're in, it's just. Yeah, it can be quite challenging. But what do you got planned, Adam? Because I know you guys got some weeks off, don't you?
Well, just finished up the long weekend at the Family Olympics. I'm going to watch the rest of the Olympics this week. I've absolutely loved wating them. And my wife...
Olympics have been great.
Well, so you're a swimmer, right?
Yeah.
My wife was a swimmer, and she was a racer. So I've been watching all the swim events with her, and it's interesting watching it. You can watch it on your own, but then... watching it with somebody who's really invested and understands and has done these sort of races and has been a totally new experience for me. I've really enjoyed it. So seeing, Summer McIntosh do what she's done and that sort of thing has been very, very cool. And obviously, no matter where it ends, the Canadian women's soccer team getting through that round despite their coaches just mystifying. Listen, I know everybody cheats, but what are you doing flying a drone in the most secure zone in the entire world right now? Are you kidding? Of course you're going to get caught.
Yeah, for sure.
So anyway, that's what I'm doing.
What a story, though, right, Adam?
Crazy.
The Canada women's soccer team, incredible.
Crazy story. What about
I think it's awesome. I think their story is incredible.
What do you got planned?
Oh, a lot of Olympics, man. I love the Olympics. I love the Summer Olympics. I was talking about this with my girlfriend. That's I love Summer Olympics more than I like the Winter Olympics. Just because I just like it more. I think the sports are more intriguing. The storylines are incredible. Not to say that they're not incredible in the Winter Olympics, because they are as well. But a lot of the things that I do, I love to swim, I love to bike, I love to run. All of those things are in the Summer Olympics, and I watch all of them. I even watch race walking, because a guy that I used to work with, Adam Dunphy. So Dunphy, that's his brother. So
no way.
Yeah. So
that's so cool.
Yeah, guy. I think he finished 5th or something like that, if I remember correctly. It was last week it was on. It was great. And triathlon, watched both the women's and the men's race as well from start to finish, because they were back to back, and I'm like, this is great. I'm I got my whole morning here, and they do it well on our apps here in Canada, where we can actually it's maybe like this for other parts of the world, but we can go back and we can re-watch an event that happened from start to finish. So if it's a 5-hour chunk of a stream, you're in it, right? And so for me, that's been fun because I missed the women's start because it was on at like, I think they started at like 2 a.m.
Right.
And I'm like, you know what? I'm already sleep deprived enough. I don't need to be anymore. So
Yeah.
I'll get up at like 7 and I'll go back. I'll pull up the stream and I'll just watch it from start to finish. But it's been great. Watched all the swimming. Haven't missed any swimming at all. Excited for like the running events, and watched. What did I watch the other night? We watched gymnastics, Adam.
Oh, so good. So good.
Like the individual women's. It was awesome.
Unbelievable.
It's incredible what those athletes can do. They're amazing.
Yeah. Oh no, it's
amazing.
You cannot, and moving from event to event to event to event while others are doing. That's the other thing, right? Like there's other people performing and the crowd's reacting to them too, and you gotta kind of hold that out. But yeah, they're all unbelievable athletes. It's amazing. So Tim, listen, I hope you enjoy, and we will obviously we've got Ben coming on next week. We'll keep you guys updated on what we're gonna do with the next week leading into before the week basically that leads into the week of Zandvoort.
The week before Zandvoort.
Yeah, so we're going to try to get we've got some potentials. We won't announce anybody yet, but we're very, very excited about the potential guests. And until then, enjoy. And Tim, enjoy a little bit of time off, my friend.
Yeah, thanks again, Adam. Appreciate you doing this.